Hello, I'm Taj, digitally known as Tropic Vibes, the host of Nifty Business, where we highlight NFTs and explore Web 3.0 as we move from pure speculation to creating real-world value. Imagine your server goes offline, your email stops syncing, unknown tech issues disrupt your workflow, and a bunch of scheduled expenses that you knew were coming all roll in at the same time while all of this is going on. What do? I guess roll with the punches. After all, this is just a day in the life of everyone on the planet. You can substitute these exact problems for anything else. There's millions of things that can go wrong on a particular day. However, all of those things happened to me during this week. But guess what? I think it is actually a good sign. So today I'm going to share why I think that is, and also share how this relates to Web3 and the market conditions. So if you've noticed, I'm trying to speak a little bit slower. I normally listen to podcasts on 1.8x speed, so I'm used to listening fast. I technically probably speak at about 1.8x speed, so normally I don't speed up when I listen to my own podcast just to hear how things are. So in case you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, he sounds really slow right now. Is my app glitching? Well, I'm going to tell you, no, I am not. I am intentionally trying to slow down. Your ears are not fooling you. But going back to this whole episode and what I opened up with, this week was very interesting in the sense that it was the perfect storm. And don't worry, this is not going to be a rant. That is not the point of saying all of this. But starting on Monday, I realized I had a bunch of software that I use that I can do interviews with, what have you. However, I'm having a hard time booking a lot of appointments right now as far as people that actually want to come on a podcast to necessarily speak about what's going on in this space. Between scheduling conflicts with my day job and other people just really trying to pull away or bury themselves into building or whatever it is that is doing. If you've noticed, I've not had as many guests on the podcast as I initially planned, trying to have one per week. So because of that, I said, you know what? I really don't need two softwares in order to do this. And the reason why I always had two softwares is because I wanted a backup. One I primarily use for video, and this is not a video podcast anyways. However, it was always my backup as far as doing interviews. But anyways, I went down to one software, and of course, this week I had a guest that I've been trying to get on the show for literally months right now, and that's going to be coming out on Sunday. But of course, when we go to record the interview, guess what happens? The one software that I do have, which is very reliable, I've used this software for years, and this has never happened. His microphone would not connect to it. Every time he turned it on, I just kept hearing a clicking beep. Multiple restarts, multiple tries, nothing was working. I said, oh, great. And I stopped paying for the other software, and the one that I'm using, which was the most stable, the one I had the most experience with, this decides to happen, and it has never happened before. So after about 10 minutes of trying, instead of just throwing up my hands, being frustrated, or continuing down that same path, we decided to use Zoom as a backup. I said, okay, well, Zoom doesn't have the best audio quality. However, we can get it done with Zoom. That's something that is stable. As a CEO of a company, I just knew that was a platform that he would have been very familiar with. Easy to use, no learning curve whatsoever. So we go into there, we record it, and we got that done. But then in the process, I tried to send out an email to him with the link and the information towards a Zoom, and I realized that there was a glitch. For some reason, it just was not going. Okay, I just dismissed it, and I sent it to him another way. But of course, after avoiding that crisis, everything went smooth, at least in my mind. I decided to go have lunch, relax, and then get back to work. But then, by the following day, I realized that a bunch of emails that I had scheduled to go out were returned to my inbox. And I was wondering, well, what's going on here? Something is not right. Maybe what I thought was with the interview and everything when I was sending out that Zoom link was a one-off thing. Maybe my internet was a little slow or whatever. I couldn't really figure out exactly what it was. Well, it turns out that it was a server problem. And long story short, without going into all the technical details of all of that, I have a bunch of websites that are hosted through my server account, and it was 100% my fault why everything basically went offline. My own websites, my sister's websites, and a whole bunch of email accounts all went at the same time. And I absolutely had no one else to blame. Now, this affected my newsletter and pretty much everything I do. So once I got that all resolved, I decided to say, okay, well, let me look at everything and really see how that went and how it ties into this whole Web3 thing, because there's a lot of parallels and lessons that I can bring into this. For starters, it is having a backup plan. And not just a backup plan, but backups to the backups. Because as far as anything can go with tech, there are things that can go wrong. And that's one of the beautiful things about a blockchain, as there's lots of redundancies and and fail safes in order to make sure everything runs smooth. However, the human element, especially offline, we don't necessarily have as many backups, whether that is storing your seed phrase in multiple places in case one gets damaged, having our files and our images that are locally stored on our computers stored to another hard drive or within the cloud backed up somewhere or in another account just in case something happens to two things. Or if you're an artist using Procreate on the iPad, just making sure everything is backed up in the cloud. That is something that I've heard multiple people that have years of art that they had on their iPad that was lost because it was never backed up. So just knowing that things definitely go wrong. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. That is Murphy's Law. And that's not just a pessimistic outlook. It's just knowing that things go wrong. It is a part of life. It is a part of the reality. And that's why I was always like that saying, plan for the worst and hope for the best. Because if the worst does happen, at least you have things in place in order to avoid that. So a lot of the time, some of these things, such as the double software that I spoke about earlier, or backing up a whole bunch of files all over the place, it might be annoying, seem redundant, or a waste of money and time. However, depending how important it is good to have those backups. But then when things do go wrong, it is also important to take ownership. It doesn't matter whose fault it really is, so it doesn't help to play the blame game, pointing fingers, or just sulking and absolutely wasting time. The best thing to do is just find a solution. And it's very hard to find a solution to the problem if blame is being thrown or someone is just wallowing in their own grief and self-pity. So during this time, it is rough for everyone. The market is down, all sorts of crazy things are going on. But I often like to tell myself, the big difference between a good day and a bad day is pretty minute. For the most part, I woke up in the same bed, probably had the same breakfast, got dressed, went to work, and went about my day as I normally do. And probably 98% of the things that happened during that day were to plan and were in line with my good days or my bad days. However, the difference is my focus. Probably those 2% of things that might be a little bit different. The days that I call my bad days are the days that I'm actually focusing on the one or two things that went wrong and letting that consume my time. Versus on the good days, the things that went well and I'm focusing on those, it just affects my entire day. So knowing where I'm putting my focus is very important. And I think that is a valuable skill and realization. And it's not just a valuable skill or observation to have in business or in Web3, but just in general in life. But as far as this NFT and crypto market goes, we're all going through some rough times. But guess what? Even during that, I'm discovering some of the most amazing projects that I've ever seen since coming into this space. A lot of the hype is gone. However, the builders are here and they're putting out some things on the blockchain that are absolutely mind-blowing. Have you ever heard the saying that calmer heads prevail? Well, if nothing else that you can take from this, it is just don't panic. And I know that is easier said than done, especially what's going on. Sometimes we do get emotional and logic and emotion just do not mix. But when I step back, I actually look at all this and say, you know what? I think this is actually a good thing. And you might think I'm just trying to sugarcoat the thing or have false positivity or something of that nature. But no, honestly, the reason why I think this is all a good sign, all those things that I just mentioned, is because usually most people quit right before their breakthrough. I don't know if you've ever seen this meme of someone who is using a pickaxe and just going through and inches away from hitting that treasure. He gets discouraged and turns back and starts walking. However, that one person who decides to take one more swing breaks through and finds all of that treasure. So I feel like right now, being in this space for over a year, continually plugging away, day in and day out, bull market, bear market, rug pull galore, cash grabs, regulatory scares, seasons of FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. A lot of people have decided to pack it up and just leave this space altogether. So on a day like this, or a week like this, I should say, when a whole bunch of things go wrong within a few days, a lot of people might say, you know what? All of this is not worth it. All of this frustration, all of this headache, let me just go back to my day job. What was I ever thinking? Thinking this is what I wanted to do full time. There is no way I should walk away from my business. There's no reason why I should walk away from what I've been doing for the last few years for this dream that is Web3. But I actually have the opposite view. Honestly, you can hear from what I'm saying that I think not just me, but anyone that is going through this space right now is really about to see a breakthrough. And it would be a shame to quit just before finding that treasure. But I know, generally speaking, I am a very optimistic person. But when everything comes at you all at once, it could be discouraging for even the most optimistic person. So that made me think of all the people that might be going through a rough time in the space. Maybe they lost way more money than they expected. Maybe they bought at the top and sold at the bottom, or whatever it may be. I want to say, if you're going through a rough time, feel free to reach out to me. We don't have to necessarily talk NFTs or anything of that nature, especially if you're on Twitter. I am at Tropic Vibes. My contact information is in the show notes. And now that everything is up and running, servers are back online, emails are coming and going, even traditional email will work just fine too. And maybe you just want something fun to do, maybe for the weekend. Depending when you're listening to this, we're actually getting ready to have a game night over at the Hoodlum Society. So that will be on Twitter, open for anyone. So even if you don't have an NFT, you just want to hop in the room, feel free to check out the information. It will be posted on the Hoodlum Society Twitter page. And of course, I will have it on mine as well. So if you're listening to this before Sunday, October 9th, 2022, you can look out for that. But regardless of when you're listening to this, the invitation to reach out to me is always open. But with that said, I just want to thank you for taking time to listen to this as we're learning and building Web3 together. So until next time, later. The Nifty Business Arrow is not investment advice. It provides insights and information within the space. As with anything, please do your own research before making a decision whether you're making an investment or a purchase.